I'm Terry with Fix My Own HVAC. Today we're going to talk a little bit more about run capacitors. We're going to discuss three things. Number one, what is a run capacitor? Number two, how do you tell if you have a problem with one of the run capacitors in your heating or air conditioning system? And number three, where do you get one if you do? So let's get started. So first, what is a run capacitor? Well, it looks a lot like these. You'll see there's three different types of run capacitors we have here in the picture. The first one, the smaller run capacitor, is usually used in fractional horsepower motors like your fan motor or your blower motor. The larger run capacitor is generally used for our compressor. And then we have our dual run capacitor. You can tell it's a dual run capacitor because it has three terminals on the top and is used for the compressor and the outdoor fan motor. Now we're going to talk about sizing your run capacitor. Each run capacitor has a particular size and tolerance that's normally printed on the label. Sometimes you'll find that on the bottom of the run capacitor, but most of the time it's written on the nomenclature label on the front. Here we see a smaller run capacitor used for fractional horsepower motors. It's a 5.0 microfarad. It also has a voltage rating of 370 or 440. Your run capacitor might be a 370 or it could be a 440. The run capacitors sold by FixMyOwnHVAC.com are dual rated, and they'll work in both the 370 or the 440 volt application. Our larger run capacitor, which is primarily used for our compressor, has a rating of 50 microfarads. And that's the important thing. We need to make sure that the run capacitor we're installing has the same specifications as the one we're removing. Same amount of terminals on this one too, denoting a single component application. And also, when we look at our run capacitors, they can come in either a oval or round configuration. So if the one that you have is oval and the one that you purchase happens to be round, it'll work just fine. Most importantly, we need to make sure that the microfarad rating and the voltage rating match exactly to the run capacitor you've removed. Now let's take a look at our dual run capacitor. Notice this one was rated 50 plus 5 microfarads. That means that it is a 50 and a 5 microfarad run capacitor. It's used for dual component applications. An example would be your compressor and your outdoor fan motor. When you look at the top, you'll notice it has a common terminal, it has a fan terminal, and it has a Herm terminal. Herm depicting hermetically sealed compressor, or commonly called the compressor terminal. And this is the most common type of capacitor. So how do you know if you need a new run capacitor? Let's talk about diagnosis. Remember, a run capacitor stores and discharges energy. So before we start diagnosing, let's take an insulated screwdriver and short across the terminals of our run capacitor to discharge any of that residual energy. If we're using a dual run capacitor, we want to make sure we short across all three terminals. Now we're going to show you how you can check your own run capacitor. Our first checks are visual. A normal run capacitor should have a flat top. If you notice, this one is bulging. If a run capacitor has signs of expansion or bulging like this, it needs to be replaced. The expansion is caused by the overheating of the oil inside of the run capacitor. When the oil overheats, it pushes up on the top of the run capacitor, causing the fusible links between the terminals and the plates to sever. And this is actually a built-in safety feature of run capacitors. Next, we're going to check for any leaking oil. If you see signs of oil around the terminals or around the rim of the capacitor, it needs to be replaced. The oil helps the capacitor to dissipate heat. If the oil leaks out of the run capacitor, it will overheat and fail. But what if your run capacitor appears normal, but your unit's still not operating correctly? Well, there's a couple other checks we can perform. If you have an analog ohm meter or a digital multimeter, we can use those in checking the run capacitors. Let's start by using our digital multimeter. The run capacitor we're going to be checking is a 50 microfarad run capacitor. With our digital multimeter set for the capacitance setting, we place our leads on the terminals of the new run capacitor. Looking at the display of our meter, we note that it says 49.6. This is within the range specified by the manufacturer. This is a good run capacitor. Now let's take a look at the run capacitor that we think may be faulty. With those same leads, we place one on the common terminal and one on the terminal labeled HERM for the compressor. Look at our display in our meter. It says 0.033. This side of the run capacitor is failed. Now let's check the fan side. Notice we have the same reading, 0.033. This run capacitor needs to be replaced. Now let's use our analog meter. This is a simple go, no-go test. It doesn't really rate the value of the capacitor. With our meter set for ohms, and we set it at the highest resistance on this meter, which is R times 1000, we're going to check to see if our capacitor charges and discharges. So when we place our leads on the capacitor, what we're going to look for is to see if the meter goes up and comes back down. So with our leads, we place one on one side of the capacitor, the other lead on the other. Notice no change in the needle. So let's switch them around. Now we notice the needle goes up and comes back down. Switch them back. The needle goes up and comes back down. Let's do it one more time. These positive results indicate that this is a working run capacitor. Now let's take a look at the run capacitor that we think may be bad. Again, with our analog meter and our leads, we place the first lead on the common terminal and the second on the HERM. Notice no deflection in the needle. So let's switch them. Still no deflection in the needle. These negative results indicate you need a new run capacitor. If you don't already have one, visit our website, fixmyownhvac.com, where you'll find the exact run capacitor you need at a great price. Well, now you know a little bit more about run capacitors. I hope this video helps you fix your air conditioner or heating system. Visit us on Facebook, like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and of course, visit our website at fixmyownhvac.com for more tips and all the parts you need to fix your own HVAC system. I'm Terry. I'll talk to you later.